Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the morning meeting, your chance to simulate reality. We talk about the news the way they do at the television network's morning meetings. That's why we call it the morning meeting. And we'll run through the day, Sean, Dan, and I, and then kick things around and then give you your chance. If you'd like to get in on the conversation, please raise your hand if you're here on the two-way platform watching, as some do, excuse me, on X or YouTube. Don't raise your hand. Don't put smack in the chat. Please adhere to our policy. Peace, love, and understanding, the presumption of grace for all. All voices under one roof. And if you don't like what you hear, use it as an opportunity to learn rather than to send Dan hate mail. Sean, how was your swearing in yesterday? Back on the board.
Well, we had agreed that I would do a few minutes and then walk in. And what I didn't realize is, as a good co-host here, I turned the notifications off. So while I was doing the show, apparently the board was trying to get my attention to tell me to get in to be sworn into office, and I did not realize that. So we had to do it. I missed the initial round of being sworn in, and Senator Sullivan was kind enough to swear me in. And we photographed it. So for the folks in the media that didn't think I got sworn in, don't worry, I didn't miss it. But it was eventful. It was cool. Very, very iconic being there on the yard. And thank President Trump for obviously naming me to serve in this capacity. But it's a great, great institution. And just a reminder at what's at stake when we see all these young men and women being prepared to serve our country.
How long is your term?
3 years.
3 years. So you're
You
good.
got a kid. Is James ready to apply? I mean, what's
No, not yet. I just want to know if President Bashir can kick you off. He'd have to reappoint you.
Yeah, well, no, I'd have to get reappointed first by this president to get into
Yeah.
and then President Vance would likely hopefully.
Yeah. All right. And Dan, I can't help but notice your background looks just a little bit different. For instance, I've been barely see Game Change.
Yes, I know. It'll all be remedied tomorrow. We'll be back to the
We're fine. We're fine.
Yes.
Listen, you
Yes.
focus on the family, Dan.
And not to create this sports segment, but we did have New England versus New York yesterday.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
Gotham,
No, we didn't.
Gotham
No, we
City
didn't.
came out on top. Incredible game. If you didn't
That
watch
was
it,
an
I
unbelievable
God,
game.
that
Is that
was
why you have the
unbelievable.
green jacket out today, Sean?
Unbelievable.
Are you
Well,
thinking
they
victory?
needed some additional last minute support. Holy smokes.
Yeah, we're not gonna turn this into Morning Joe where we talk about Boston sports. It's just not gonna happen. All right, on the Daybook, big event at the White House today. The president is meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister. Open press arrival 11:30, 11:45. Bilateral meeting, closed press. Then 12:15, they participate in a bilateral lunch, closed press. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Pardon me. 11:45, a bilateral meeting is White House pool. So that's the big event of the day where they will blab up a storm and we'll see if it's friendly or not. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Then the president participates in a FIFA task force meeting at 3:30 and participates in a swearing in ceremony for various people at 5 o'clock. Don't know what the vice president's doing. He's got an event tomorrow. Pete Hegseth, go ahead and put that up. He tweeted this morning. He headed to Florida at the pre-dawn. He flew out, and here he is speaking live in Tampa at the JW Marriott to a special operations gathering. I only saw I wouldn't know he was going except for his tweet. Maybe the guy put out a press release I didn't get. But in any event, we'll monitor that and see what he has to say. But he's in Florida already. Left really early to get down there to start speaking now. Scott Bessent is amongst the many members of the cabinet who are on Capitol Hill today testifying about their budgets. Scott Bessent at 10. Also, Kristi Noem and Brooke Rollins. Doug Collins, the Secretary of Veterans, the Veterans Department Secretary, is on the Senate side testifying. And Jamieson Greer, the USTR chief, is speaking at the Milken Conference in Los Angeles at 1 p.m. Eastern. Trade data came out at 8:30, shows the trade deficit up, which will be part of the debate, of course, on the tariffs. House and Senate are in. Lots of private meetings amongst House Republicans. Several of the important committees are meeting to deal with reconciliation. The leadership is meeting with lots of folks. Medicaid continues to be a big focus of these conversations to try to impossibly square the impossible circle. 10 o'clock, the House Republican leaderships have their weekly press conference. 10:45, Democratic House leadership has their press conference. And of course, if it's Tuesday, it's the 12:45 separate Republican and Democratic Senate lunches. All right. Last night, or yesterday, I should say, both the president and Howard Lutnick teed up the meeting today with the new Prime Minister of Canada. Here is first the president and then Howard Lutnick talking about U.S.-Canadian trade relations.
What's your expectation for your meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister tomorrow?
I don't know. He's coming to see me. I'm not sure what he wants to see me about, but I guess he wants to make a deal. Everybody does. They all want to make a deal because we have something that they all want. We have something that they all want. China wants to make a deal very badly. You see what's happening to China. China's being decimated.
All right, go ahead and switch to Lutnick, please.
Or can I just real quick on that?
I just don't see how
go
it
ahead.
works out so perfect.
But you're not going
Just come out of Lutnick.
USMCA. That deadline is next year for the final review.
Correct. So next year is coming. So a lot of things
if it's
are going to be put into
USMCA
that.
compliant, you're okay.
I think for
Is that
now it's
still the
okay,
truth?
but I think what you should expect to see is a real revisiting of USMCA in a year, because Donald Trump, remember what was fun about USMCA, remember when he renegotiated the deal, he wanted an exit clause in 3 years. And they said, no way, we're only going to have a 6-year exit clause because we don't want to negotiate with you. And now the Biden election went the way, with the election getting stolen from our president. And now here they are negotiating with Donald Trump. And I don't think they're very happy about that.
One thing.
So Sean Carney, the Prime Minister Carney seems to have done a good job of playing his politics at home, but also being apparently, pleasant with the president. What are your expectations for today?
A couple of things. Number one, when you go back to that picture in the Oval Office in the president meeting, I think who wore it best, Roger Goodell or Muriel Bowser, the mayor of DC, in terms of not looking like they were not comfortable in that moment. Because I'm watching both of them thinking neither one of them were there. But they were both there to talk about the NFL draft being in DC, and I don't think they really wanted to be sitting around talking about that. We didn't get
better than Gretchen Whitmer, though.
That's true. They both wore it better than her. I looked, as we normally do, at the pool today because we talk about Carney coming in, and you think about that moment with Zelensky. This is going to really tell how the meeting goes. That top of the meeting when they have the pool spray come in, you look at who's there. I don't see any of the provocateurs, if you will, on the list. Right. So you see the Federalists there, very legally minded. That's not really their shtick. I mean, the Post, obviously. So the point is that's the key moment. That spray, I think, is going to set the tone for the meeting. Does it stay on track? Does it not? I think when you look back at the Irish Taoiseach, when he came over, he really made sure that he kept the train on the rails. I would expect Carney to do the same. I think Carney understands what's at stake in this meeting. The president really enjoyed needling and trolling Justin Trudeau. I don't think that's the same with Carney. I think he wants a relationship with him. I think Carney comes into this understanding the importance of the relationship, not just in terms of trade, but of security as well. And that there's a lot of concern that they have. So I think that this starts on the right track. I think that spray at the top is going to set the tone, and that's what I would watch for. Does something set Trump off? Does he say something? Does Carney take the bait on something, etc.?
Dan, if you were a lobbyist retained by the Canadian government, you were staffing Carney, what would you tell him the best he could get out of this would be?
Well, I think it depends exactly to what Sean is saying, which is style versus substance, because Carney got elected on the premise of being tough and standing up to Donald Trump. And, he's got a domestic audience. And I think at the same time, he's a deal maker. He's a banker. He's not a gregarious flamethrower personality. He's more reserved and measured. And so I think I am curious from his vantage point, does he look to kind of show that, I'm an equal at the table with you and we're not going to be the 51st state? Or is he kind of, gracious and magnanimous and, tries to keep it focused on where they can find agreement to ultimately strike a deal to get out of this? I will be very curious because he keeps saying, I take the threat seriously from Trump. We have to take everything he says literally and seriously. So how do you then kind of not try to flex in front of him?
There's sort of three models that I see, right? There's the Bukele model of El Salvador. You come in and you're just kissing his butt, and that's that. Then you got the Starmer slash Irish Taoiseach model, which is you're a liberal, you don't like, you have been very outspoken against his policies, and how do you do that? Because that's to me the similar trait in this, right? That if you look at how Starmer came over, how the Taoiseach came over, they were both getting pressured domestically to come over and stand up and be tough. I think they both handled it very, very well. And then you got the Zelensky model, which is you took the bait and you blew the whole thing. So I think that if you're Carney, you follow the model so far that most of Europe has followed. Come over, don't say anything stupid, stay on track, say enough praiseworthy, find common ground, and move forward and get to the lunch. The lunch is where you really need to get to.
Wait till you see how extensive the coverage is on Canadian TV tonight. It's going to be massive.
Yeah.
Sean,
except the hockey playoffs are there, so there'll be a little balance.
Yeah, a little balance. The White House is right that ounce for ounce, the president's probably answering more questions in these Oval Office photo ops than he would at a 2x2 press conference. But why does Trump prefer this format to the more formal and traditional 2x2 questions? Because he wants to answer more questions, or he doesn't like to answer questions standing up?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. There's a home court advantage. You're sitting in the Oval Office. He understands the stylistic home court advantage that the Oval Office brings. I think he likes the view of it much better than standing behind a podium. And the 2x2 is a lot like they get two Canadians, and you don't see in these things the foreign press getting in the way that they would.
That's my theory. That's my theory. This way, he controls who gets to ask a question. If he likes the line of questioning, he can keep going.
Right,
if he
but
doesn't,
also
he can move on.
The Canadian press, not the Canadian, the foreign press tends to ask foreign questions, right? So you're asking some random question about some munitions dump that occurred from or some random treaty.
And he wants to talk about Alcatraz and Pope memes.
Right.
I also think he loves having his team standing over them. Yeah. Like, I mean, you look at that, the press is up against the sofa and standing right over their shoulders.
Greek,
Stephen Miller.
And they're like a Greek chorus cheering section.
Well, but also you get to set the cadence. You want to keep going, you keep going. On a 2x2, you got to do two. Both sides.
Exactly.
And that's it.
All right. As I said, Scott Bessent's up on the Hill today. He spoke at Milken yesterday, did a cable TV hit. He is increasingly seen, according to all the people I talked to, as the powerful voice for the administration, as the person who can influence how the markets and the real economy and others are feeling about the Trump tariffs and everything else that's going on. Here is 111. This is a quote from a woman named Caroline Wren, who's been a Trump fundraiser. Caroline Wren, thank you. Who's been a longtime Trump fundraiser, who said to Axios that Scott Bessent is, quote, transcending politics in, quote, one of the most polarizing political climates in modern history with, quote, praise from Wall Street to Main Street, from Steve Bannon to Jamie Dimon, from Janet Yellen to Rand Paul. So, Dan, are people who are saying Bessent is transcending politics and being a great whisperer to all overstating the case, or is he in fact occupying the role that Janet Yellen did not, and a lot of Treasury secretaries don't, because they don't have the public face that Bessent clearly does?
Yeah, I think he absolutely is transcending it. I mean, even Bob Rubin was not trusted by our base. He was loved by Wall Street. He was assuring to the markets, particularly during the crises of the late 90s, that we had. But look, I think he is calming, he is reassuring, he's measured. And I think, look, the challenge he has on the horizon is, I think the reason the markets and Jamie Dimon and everyone are calmed is there is an expectation that we are going to get out of this soon, that this is not going to continue, past Labor Day or really past 4th of July. And so I think how Bessent is able to reassure people, potentially get something to take these down, is going to be the ultimate needle to thread for him.
I'm going to tell you guys Trump axiom 42. There's what's worse than bad news in Trump world, really good news. And I think that Bessent's got to be careful because he's crushing it. He's doing a fantastic job. He's doing exactly as Caroline suggested, threading that needle. But there's always a concern in Trump world that if you're getting really bad news, you're in trouble. But if you're starting to get too much good news, you could equally be in trouble. And so he's got to figure out that balance.
Let me ask you about another set of rules. If you want to have Trump's ear, what are the ways to have Trump's ear? Because Bessent clearly does now. So whether you're Bessent or Stephen Miller, what are the keys to getting Trump's ear?
Well, to win the surrogate war, which he's clearly done, meaning if you read that the comment that Caroline's putting out, when you know that Trump is hearing from disparate folks that X person is doing a great job, that's number one. Number two is obviously going on Fox News and other high profile type things. And I would say that those are probably the two, to have the echo chamber on your side and to have the media on your side, the key media.
How have these billionaires and millionaires gotten his ear? Because not all of them do
You got
TV.
Trump's ear.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is the strategy of where you're putting your media, who you're talking to. Bessent's done a good job of being accessible. He's got a good team around him. You think about like one of his top aides, Alexandra Priot. She's been really done a lot of great work thinking about who he needs to be talking to, who supports him. She gets that echo chamber spun up from Steve Bannon to Jamie Dimon. Like they've done a really good job of creating his image and his persona, making sure he's in the right places at the right events. He did that event with Grinnell last night. Again, you think about it. You've got people like Grinnell. Look at the people who were at that event last night that Caroline and her team, Ryan Coyne and others hosted, right? Bill Ackman, other people in that orbit who get seen, who hear from Scott, who then say, oh, he's doing a great job. They echo. And so this.
And don't underestimate that they counter-programmed Ken Griffin's event, who's been a critic of Trump. And I have no doubt that was not lost on the president, that he played ball to stick it to Ken Griffin.
Yeah.
Dan,
well,
you worked with Hillary Clinton. You worked with Nancy Pelosi. How did they decide who got their ear?
Oh boy. I mean, in both instances, they have people who had their cell phones who could reach them, at times. There was a pretty formal process, and you had to be careful. If you went directly to the Clintons or to Nancy Pelosi with a message of like, I've got concerns, or you would hear from staff in some way to basically say, look, there's a chain of command that you need to work the problem up through. Things only get to the principal when they've either like, hey, we've thought of everything. Here's it now needs your attention. But if you if you were to step over people, you would get your hand slapped.
Yeah. And Sean, this is the point I wanted to make. And I know someone's going to provide the term. There's some term from like organization theory or business about access to the principal, right? Trump does not have that same buffer. It was reported, for instance, over the weekend that John Voight said to him, hey, you should put a tariff on films. Boom, there's a tariff on films, or at least it's discussed. Talk about how Trump differs from most politicians in terms of ability to have his ear without going through 17 layers.
Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, bottom line, Dan's right. I mean, most politicians and military leaders, I mean, there's a chain of command. If you jump that chain of command, not just staff wise too. When I was at the White House,
Yeah.
I had a team both on the press side and on the comm side. I've been doing the military thing for 26 years. You jump the chain of command and go straight to the XO, the CO without going through a department head, you're going to get your hand slapped. Same thing on the enlisted side. You got a problem, you go to the chief or the senior enlisted advisor. In Trump, you just call his phone. I mean, or put a message in and say, can I visit him? Or, back during Trump 1, and it's not that different. But now if you need to get a piece of information to him, there's a difference. So good people know how to play the game right? So I got to be honest. I think Susie Wiles has run a great ship. She understands. I mean, if you go around, if you were to play a game where you wreaked havoc as a staffer and went around her, and she would make it known that you were persona non grata. So there's a limit how you can play this game.
Right. But if David Sachs or Elon wants to tell Trump something, they can't. They don't need to go through.
Oh my God. But who was there was a senator talking yesterday about this. Where if you're a member, I mean, if you put a call into Trump as a member of Congress or as a friend or whatever, and you'll get a call back. He is literally the most accessible guy that at a level of power that bar none. And he calls enemies back. I mean, you saw he had dinner with with Bill Maher. He is unbelievably accessible.
I wonder how how just again, pound for pound, how he's different than Bill Clinton, who was also extremely accessible and would call people back.
Well,
But
the difference is I mean, Dan kind of references, but there's a level, and one of the things that I learned somewhat the hard way was, as a staffer, initially you want to control the process, and there just has to be this Zen moment where you're like, say the Serenity Prayer, like give me the ability to control what I can and what I can't, and you realize Trump's going to do what he is, and you're not going to control it. And as soon as you, as a staffer, understand that, it's the same thing. I had a couple reporters at one point call me and say, well, I want to, they basically, were like, hey, I talked to him. He gave me this. As a press guy, that annoys the crap out of you initially until you realize that's just, you're never going to control that.
Trump, like Clinton, has an insatiable appetite for information. And so he likes to talk to reporters because he likes to hear from them. We've had the 5 recent presidents, 3 were early to bed, early to rise, and 2 were night owls. And the night owls are off the chain because the staff can't police them when they're making calls at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. Biden, Obama, Bush, early to bed.
Well, I think
Clinton
the other
and
night
Mark,
owls.
you remember this too from probably 08. But one of the problems that the Hillary campaign had when it got a little bumpy was Bill Clinton was calling around at night all over the country.
Correct.
What's happening? What are you hearing? What do you think of this
Correct.
person? And then he'd walk into Hillary, tell her, she'd go down to the staff and say, Bill talked to so-and-so. What are we doing? And they'd all look up and think, God damn it.
Obama did initially, at least, but it's funny. The advent of the cell phone, even the last 3 presidents, has made it big difference. Because now you don't need to call the White House switch operator and say, can you put me through to the president? You still, but if you don't want to worry about it getting routed 8 different ways, the difference is that, there's a funny Jay Leno story that he was telling on an interview the other day. He played not a prank. He tried to impress a couple friends and called Obama. And he was saying that he wanted to just show he could call Obama, and Obama answered the phone and said, Jay, lose this number. But he still could do it. And I think that's the difference, is now you have the ability to call them on their cell phone, which you haven't prior. I mean, Bush, there was no way to do that.
Well, don't forget, neither of them text, because they're both of a generation and they're suspicious and for legal reasons of putting anything in writing.
Well, Trump's always believed that on email.
I'm very keen about the Democrats. We've talked about they need a message. We've talked about them needing some people to step forward as leaders. The other thing they really lack is infrastructure. Trump has the White House, he's got the RNC, he's got the MAGA movement, he's got all these outside allies. And to go up against Trump, you need a lot. So there's a new Democratic organization or anti-Trump organization. It's got some Republicans in it as well. Put up 109A, please. This is called the Cost Coalition. And the Cost Coalition is a group that says they're going to raise money to do ads and grassroots and digital and events to say that Donald Trump is costing American families to pay higher prices. 109B, please. Amongst those who are part of this group is a Republican known to us named Terry Holt, who worked for George W. Bush, worked for John Boehner, longtime Republican. He's teaming up here with Andrew Bates, who many of you's name will recognize. He was a spokesperson for Joe Biden. Dan, are groups like this, helpful in the sense that they can get to scale to make a difference? Or my suspicion is we've seen several of these pop up. Agreement on the message, it should be about economics and cost. But is this kind of group going to be able to get to scale to be able to go up against the White House and break through?
Well, I doubt it. I mean, look, the resistance is not organized, and that is good and bad because there is no leadership within the party. There is no central command, big table, conference table in DC or here in New York City, where people are moving around with pieces on a chessboard saying, you go here and you go here. And it's all, kind of pointing towards one goal. It is just people who are fired up, who have said, like, enough. All right, let's band together. Let's go see if we can put together, some money and run a few ads. But, and that's good because it helps to have people in the chorus, at least on this front. This is a good message. But I don't think they will ultimately put a dent in it. I don't think they're going to get the type of money that would sustain them through not this November, but next November. But every little piece helps.
Can I just, so there's look, first of all, there's a need to have the discussion that we're having about how to effectively counter, right? And I clearly, this isn't it, but I will posit to you option 3 on this. to be kind, I won't use the word grift. I will just say that consultants need to make money, and sometimes they come up with means by which to raise money to do things that may not always have a real consequence, except for to raise them enough money to get paid and to make commissions off buys and things like that. I don't view an effort like this. This isn't real. I have a feeling, who knows, but I think it doesn't have even the trappings of being, you know,
How much would they need to raise to be real in your mind?
50
Let's say
million.
this year, 50 million, right?
25 easy. You got to run. I mean, think about DC market. You're looking at what, 1.2 to 1.5 to do 1,000 points. That doesn't include digital. That's 1 week. I mean, to really to have a dent, and plus that's just a very old school model. I mean, I think if you really want to be substantial, you got to get boots on the ground. You got to really do a robust digital operation. I mean, that's why I'm saying this is not real.
Well, it depends what you're doing. I think that what I've read is their focus is New Jersey and Virginia coming up in these off-year gubernatorial elections, and it's probably more likely to be Virginia than necessarily New Jersey, although Republicans may win that state. But I think, to your point, Sean, probably 50 million, because once you go up, you really can't go down. So you need to stay up. You need to kind of thematically be driving something, and it can't just be TV ads. You probably want rural radio and black radio, and you want digital ads and meme makers, and that costs real money that has to be sustained.
Right. So some of these groups, as Sean suggested, are simply one or two or maybe more, some number of rich people are convinced by the consultants, if you write checks, we can be the players who drive this message. We've got the Ian Sams group. We've got this group. I'm sure there are others. And again, they're dividing the pot of money. It's just a challenge because, again, the president has so much infrastructure.
Even at the low end, a consultant's going to take 10% off the buy, or at least figure out how to launder that. And so, on a few $1 million, that's not a bad take for people that are out of the mix. I mean, unfortunately, I used the phrase a bunch, but I've seen this movie before, and there's a lot of ways that consultants need to make money in an off year. And a lot of it, to your point, is either getting organizations or rich dudes to write a check that then they can take a cut of, make buys, or have, partnerships with other firms that pay them on the back end.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised by this, but it does not have the trappings of looking substantial or effective.
All right. Raise your hand if you want in on the conversation. We got a couple more topics, then we'll get to you. All right. Last night, the Met Gala, if you read the New York Post, 50 stories about the Met Gala. Most don't have much to do with politics, although in the past, AOC made a big splash when she went, and other political figures have gone. Amongst the few political figures at the Met Gala last night, 105, was the former Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, resplendent in black and white. The Democratic National Committee Twitter account tweeted out that photo. And
I want to thank the DNC for doing that. That
could
not have been more.
Her other populist move while she's been in New York is she went to the Polo Bar for dinner with Doug. Sean and Dan, have you guys been to the Polo Bar?
I have.
I've tried. I can't get in.
Yeah, I'll take you some. I'll take you some. It's a block from Trump Tower. It's a very, very buzzy space. It's one of the few post-COVID restaurants in New York that's hard to get into. It's so hard to get into that you're not allowed to walk in without getting past somebody with a clipboard. You can't say, "Oh, I'm just going to have a drink at the bar." Even that is not allowed. And yet somehow the vice president got in. Dan, what's your review of the vice president's visit to New York?
Well, we are always happy to have her here in New York, but look, I don't know what she was doing. I do, but I don't see how this helps her. It's, it's on some level, it's as silly as the White House, retweeting Trump as the Pope. Like, why is the DNC tweeting her at the Met Gala? It doesn't really help the party. I just, she likes to hobnob with wealthy people in the arts.
But what about the argument that the president's a billionaire who hobnobs with billionaires? Like, what's wrong for the Democrats to have their fancy moments?
Sure, but Trump's base, his strength is the working class. Kamala's Achilles is she is seen as out of touch and elitist, and nothing is more out of touch and elitist than even by New York City standards. Nothing is more out of touch and elitist than the Met Gala. And so, look, I don't think anyone ultimately cares, but like, as she's inching back into the public's, square, into the public spotlight, probably not the best look for her to be at the Met Gala.
Well,
Sean, besides agreeing, what else do you think?
I just think she should have gone to Bergdorf on the way to the Polo Club. It would have just made a trifecta of dumb moves. Look, I will say this. The idea, look, she can go to where she wants. She can do, I'm a capitalist. I hope she goes to the Polo Club every night. I hope she, but the bottom line is you want to re-enter politics, whether it's governor of California or is the potential Democratic nominee. And the DNC is tweeting that out. Like somehow that's like, it's one thing if she does it. It's another thing if the new chairman thinks that that's a smart message for them. I mean, I could not be
I
happier. What a
I
great
I
start my
I
day.
would love to know, not just for a book, but in general, the chain of events that led the DNC to tweeting that photo. I would just love to know
Well,
who
I also
thought it
wonder,
was,
does Ken Martin wake up this morning and say, who was the knucklehead that did that? Or does he say, I'm
unless it
the
was
one
his
who authorized
idea. Unless
it?
it was
Or is
his
it,
idea. But I mean, who took the photo? How did it get to the person who controls the DNC account? Just interesting to know because
oh no,
again, I don't begrudge her wanting to have a glamorous and exciting life.
Right.
She was a senator from California. She was, vice president of the United States. The Bidens will be on The View tomorrow, by the way. But for the DNC account to tweet that out, I don't get it. All right, last thing. Pete Hegseth, as I said, left early this morning for Tampa, 103, please, and tweeted it out. I don't know who took this video, but show 103 and then 104. The Secretary of Defense giving that speech in Tampa. Here he is boarding his military plane to fly down. That tweet, 2:31 a.m. 2:31 a.m. So, like, it's like a 3-hour flight. I don't know why he had to leave quite so early. His speech wasn't until 8:45. But there he goes. Mystery that we still have not solved. There's another story in the Wall Street Journal about Pete Hegseth's use of Signal. It doesn't break new ground, but it adds some details about the circumstances under which he and others on his behalf used the account. Sean, who is out to get Pete Hegseth?
well, first of all, I think that I read that story and it may be one of the dumber stories. It made me stupider reading it. Because it shed no real light on the situation. I think that the issue, if Signal's authorized, it's authorized, full stop. They use the word sensitive because that's their new buzzword because it wasn't. I mean, he had a conversation with his wife about a media appearance. I mean, who gives a crap? That being said, who's out to get him? Do you think about who would likely be on the chain on some of those previous Signal things, right? Gosh, he just fired 4 senior staffers who were probably in some way, shape, or form part of one or a series of those previous chats.
They deny being out to get him, and they're his friends. So you still think it's them? Okay, Dan, do you think it's those guys?
Like I don't even think like if this isn't even like this is Professor Plum in the library with the candlestick. Like
Okay.
I took
Okay.
less time to solve that.
Professor Plum is covered with Pete Hegseth's blood.
Let's hope
Dan,
not.
do you think it's those guys?
I mean, it could be. I think the bigger problem for him is it sounds like half the building's out to get him. And it's just really hard to lead a bureaucracy where so many people don't like you, whether it's in government or as a CEO or a member of management, when your team doesn't like you. That is just a very
Look,
bad.
with all due respect, I think that's an exaggeration. I think there are people who got pushed out who probably don't like him. I don't think there is a lot of people at the senior ranks in the military who are very excited about his leadership, who are so, I get that he may have some detractors, as most people do. And some people who have a vendetta against him now because of how they've been treated or whatever. But I would think it's definitely not the people that I
look. The stories are all that there are many. So you're right. I don't know what that definition is. Is that 5? Is it 10? Is it 100? 200? I don't know.
All I can tell you is there's at least one other cabinet member who have tons of people in the department who think the person has a lot of problems with how they're doing the job. And they're not, and you don't see daily stories about the same kind of chaos and question, judgment, etc. Something's going on here.
Well,
Lastly,
and also, I just want to say, like, I mean, you belittled that, like, half those messages were, exercise and meeting your wife, but like 90% of Hillary Clinton's Gmails were getting my hair done. Huma, where are we going later today?
So she said.
Well,
so she said.
So all we get with Hegseth is like, only some of these are, classified.
New Michigan poll from Epic MRA, which is a respected Michigan pollster. Sean, what do you think they have the president's approval rating at?
46.
Dan.
42.
41, 56 disapprove. Not great. Not great. All right, let's bring in your questions. As always, we'll ask you to unmute. Tell us where you are, what's on your mind. Sir, I'm not going to risk pronouncing your name wrong. Is it Shamsul? How's that? Shamsul? Close enough.
You got it. You
All
got
right,
it,
welcome
Mark.
in. Welcome in,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you for joining. Tell folks where you are. Thank you for being part of Two-Way and what's on your mind.
I'm from Kuala Lumpur.
Yes, sir. Is that where you are now? Is
Yeah.
that where you are
Excuse
now?
me?
Is
Yes,
that where
that's
you are
where
now?
I am now.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for being part of the worldwide Two-Way community.
There you go.
What's on your
I'd
mind,
like
sir?
to say hi to the three of you. Been a big fan since before the show, before the election.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for calling me.
Yes, sir. What's on your mind?
Yeah. What's on my mind? That's actually a lot on my mind, but I'll start with this actually. That's been bugging me for the last couple of weeks. Actually, I think the media in America, mainstream media, especially in America, has been almost practically, in my opinion, prisoners. The way they go about things, it's like they want President Trump to fail. I'm not surprised that the polling numbers are at 41%, but then 41% to me seems good when you think about the percentage that he won. And the negativity of almost everything that the mainstream media puts out on whatever Trump and his administration are doing. So as far as I look at it, those are great polling.
It's funny.
All right. Let's get a reaction. Sean first. Thank you for that.
I had Jim McLaughlin on my show last night, and I said to him the same thing. I said, if you had 92% of the media stories against you, wouldn't you expect someone's rating to be what it is? Because you think about all the forces that are against him right now, in terms of how, whether it's academia, Hollywood, big tech, corporate America, all of these people in the media, 92% of the stories are negative against him, and you wonder why his ratings are what they are. I agree with you.
Dan.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a disagreement on that one. His ratings, I think, are where they are, not because the media is telling people, but because people are experiencing it in their own lives. You just look at qualitative data that's out there. There's another whole set of focus groups that came out today out of the swing states. And I think, look, it's hard. I'm not sure how many people get their news anymore from the mainstream media. I mean, just to be candid, I think a lot of people get it from influencers and social media and podcasters and, wonderful platforms like Two-Way here. And so the number of people who still read the New York Times or watch NBC Nightly News and say that, that's my filter, I think is fewer and fewer. But it could be, you may be right that is influencing outcomes. But I just think in this instance, it's the president's own policies that people in their guts are saying, I didn't vote for this. This is not what I expected.
Mark, can I just go on the record?
Thank you.
Go ahead, on the record now for the people's poll. I think we brought it up last week. This is a great question to ask coming into this week. Where do you get your news? Number one. And then number two, what do I think we asked a version of it last time, but just, I think getting people where they get their news and then how they think the legacy media is covering Trump is sort of comes up enough that I'd love to see how we fare on those questions.
Look at your email. Somebody submitted a poll question like that.
Yeah, Dan already did. But reminder, People's Poll. This is our unique work with WIC, our partners at WIC, David Burrell and others, to do a poll that gets your input. And lots of you submitted questions. 15 of you got your questions in the first one. The next one will come out in 6 days on Monday on this program, and will be on other Two-Way programs. So if you want to submit some questions for the poll, the only poll we know of that allows citizens to submit questions, go to my Substack, and you'll see the link there to go to a Google form page, put in your information and submit questions. And we expect to have a pretty robust participation, not just from Two-Way hosts like Dan and Sean, but those of you. So if you want to be part of the People's Poll coming out next Monday, please go to my Substack and submit a question through the form. Don't email in your questions, please. We're only taking questions through the form. And you have until tomorrow at 10 Eastern time, so about 24 hours, 10 a.m. to make questions. Jeanette, welcome in. Thank you for being part of Two-Way. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind, please.
I'm in Akron, Ohio, and more of a globalist than a Democrat, but I vote Democrat because there's no globalist party. So I'm concerned a couple of things you were talking about last week, and I don't get to watch live very often because most of the days I'm working. But no tax on tips does not make any sense. It doesn't make it. It sounds great because we're like, oh, those poor little waitresses, they can, get more money. But the poor little waitresses aren't paying very much taxes. But there's people making hundreds of thousands of dollars on tips working in restaurants where the bill comes in at like thousands of dollars and they're getting 20%. And why, when we have people, why don't we, nurses' aides, they don't get a tax break and they're working their ass off. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right, Jeanette, let us respond to that one, and then we'll come back to you. Dan,
Okay.
You a fan of no tax on tips?
Look, I'm supportive of any tax relief for people to some extent. I think the challenge, as someone who used to work on tax legislation, is how do you write this so that people don't start saying you make, let's say, $20 an hour and you get tips. I'm going to take you down to $7.50, whatever the minimum wage is. You'll get more tips, and now you're not going to pay any taxes on that income. I think people both on overtime and tips are going to try to game the system. And for the tax writers, this is what they're going to try to, work to prevent, but it's really hard. But look, I'm sympathetic because most people, I think, who get cash tips don't pay taxes already. They should, full disclosure, but they don't. So, I'm sympathetic towards trying to help people always.
But aren't a lot of tips are on credit cards now, so it'd be hard not to pay taxes on them, right?
Well, it depends. I mean, some people won't take Venmo for that reason.
Right. I mean,
when I get my haircuts, cash only.
It's funny you say that. When I go in to get, they literally say we cannot accept the tip on on the card.
But you're right, though.
Although they are working that end runner on Venmo now, where if you get over whatever it is, $5 grand.
Yeah, de minimis. Yep.
I will say this, Jeanette. You're right in your description in the sense that this is definitely, like a lot of policy, frankly, is an attempt to get people excited. That's why it was done. I also agree with Dan that how this gets calculated, the devil is in the details. And at the end of the day, my guess is that this is in the bill to like a $5 grand, like every other thing. It's means tested, or the devil's going to be in the detail on this. And I will say this, as a guy who almost entirely there's no tax cut that I probably wouldn't support. However, I have started to tip the scale on a personal level on this tip thing. I'm tired of walking in everywhere and having them flip the screen and and I say this half jokingly. So for everyone out there it has gotten to the point where you go to the dry cleaner and they flip the thing and they're like, would you like to tip 15%? And, they're like, so by the way, and then they'll say something like, I watched the morning meeting. I'm a big fan. Here's the tip thing. So I'm starting to get you can't even go to the gas station anymore without them trying to get a tip. In some ways, I think I've jumped the shark on tipping.
I will say one other thing, though, because and this is a serious answer. Our tax code is 10,000 pages because we use the code to incentivize behavior. Yes. Buying a house, get a tax deduction because we think home ownership is good. What are we talking about with Hollywood? Hollywood wants tax incentives to bring movies back, oil and gas versus clean energy, like domestic cars, solar panels, healthcare, childcare. We use the tax code to, both parties do. It's their behavior they want to incentivize. And that's why the thing is so big. The argument is should we be using our tax code to try to engineer outcomes that we think are good for society? And this was always our complaint at H&R Block is people were like, you guys gun the code up. We're like, no, we don't. You remember Congress does.
Yeah. Jeanette, what's your next topic?
Work requirements for Medicaid. Not that I don't think everybody should be working and contributing, but the problem is that if you lose your job, you lose your insurance. And the other problem is if you don't have insurance and you show up in an emergency room, they are obligated to treat you. Yeah. And so then how does that money get paid back? So first thing they do when you show up in an emergency room and you don't have insurance is they sign you up for Medicaid. So I I think that, the Obamacare was supposed to be a first step toward getting to every, health insurance is a right in America, and we're just backing off of that. And I know that's the Republicans' plan, is to back off of that, but it doesn't work if you show up and you don't have health insurance. They still have to treat you.
Right. Sean.
Look,
Complicated issue, obviously, but
yeah, I was gonna say this issue. Like, I believe our healthcare system is so screwed up. How we treat people. One of the great things about the Maha movement is it really exposed how we deal with people. It is not, we do not have a preventative system, right? And it's funny. I had a discussion with my doctor probably a year ago where I asked her about why certain things weren't covered or whatever, and it was interesting because what she said to me is that insurance companies aren't incentivized either because people are so mobile. Or even if you stay at your job, a lot of times now, even if you stay at your job for 15 years, they'll switch healthcare coverage 5 times because they're looking for the lowest deal. So the insurance company doesn't even care if you have preventative, care, because they know they're probably not going to be treating you in 2 years or 3 years. And so that it's always about passing the buck. So I say all that because I think our entire healthcare system is so backwardsly set up about how we handle things, and we're not incentivized to be and live healthy or to treat things until it's too late. You think about how we deal with just look at type 2 diabetes. Until you get on diabetes, we won't give you the stuff to prevent you becoming obese or dealing with things that will prevent it. This is ridiculous. Even if you are the biggest fiscal conservative, it makes sense to keep people healthy because you avoid the long-term systemic things, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, all sorts of other diseases and chronic illnesses that occur at that stage when it becomes irreversible. So I think that we have set up healthcare in a very, very bad way. I think employer-based healthcare is proven itself not to be probably the smartest thing. So I think there needs to be a whole rewrite and a thought about how we do healthcare.
Dan.
Yeah, it is a very hard subject because I think that the image most people have in their head is able-bodied people who are taking, public benefits when they could be potentially going to work, right? That is what a lot of people kind of think when they hear that work requirement. But life being complicated and messy, you get a lot of people who, for various, legitimate circumstances, cannot work. And so trying to put this on everybody is a very hard thing because there will be likely thousands of people for whom they can't work. So I don't know what the ultimate solution is going to be. I know the politics of this for the Democrats get a little dicey because there are, just as there are people who can't work, there are probably people who can work. And we would, the dignity of work is a good thing. And where appropriate, private sector and having to go earn something versus kind of being given it is usually the better outcome. But it's a hard subject.
So, Jeanette, stay with us. I want to show you, the three of you, a new ad. There's a group supporting Republican efforts to keep control of the House, running some ads, some supporting Republican members, some attacking Democratic members on this issue of Medicaid and healthcare funding. This is Congresswoman Higgins of Virginia, being a Republican, being supported by this multi-million-dollar outside effort. 108, please.
There's a lot of misinformation out there trying to scare seniors. Trust me, Congresswoman Jen Higgins is fighting to protect all of us. She's supporting President Trump's common sense reforms to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, fixing the Biden pill penalty while preserving our benefits. Because Congresswoman Jen Higgins will always protect seniors.
Jeanette, that piano music alone, I think, would force you to vote for Congresswoman Higgins, right?
Well, I am a little bit irritated with these Biden pill penalty commercials because it sounds like they're penalizing people that need pills, and they're not. They're saying that when you spend a lot of money to develop a medication that's very needed by a lot of people, they're penalizing the pharmaceutical companies. And that's not the message that comes across with that piano music and the nice old lady saying Biden pill penalty.
I'll bet you 50 grand that nice old lady's an actress and not some citizen. But anyway, Dan, what did you think of this spot?
I mean, look, it's fine. I think the problem is just going to be the reality of what's coming down the road. I mean, the fork is almost upon us. Republicans are going to have to choose, and they can say all they want. They're not going to do something, but when they have to put in writing the bill text, we'll see.
Sean, good spot.
I mean, the spot's great, right? And I think, frankly, from a political standpoint, getting ahead of this, she's a great Navy veteran. She represents the Tidewater area down there in Eastern Virginia. I think it's a great idea to get ahead of this, to really drive up her positives. So the ad's good. It's smart. It's funny, though. I will say that this whole issue, like I said, is very fascinating from so many different aspects, because you got the healthcare piece that we just talked about, the political aspect that we talk about, and then there's the other piece, which is the cost, right? And so you think about some of these pills, and people want certain pills on the schedule, right? So, and that was one of the things that Biden did, is when you put things on a name brand on what they call the schedule. Like, so now suddenly you and I, because we have insurance, can get that for $20. Well, guess where the cost goes? The same pill still costs $1,000, but the $980 other dollars the federal government absorbs. So we still pay for it. And that's the dirty secret of so many of these things. When people tell you, I'm making these drugs more affordable for you, maybe for me and you, but then the rest of the taxpayers pay the $980 so it's a little bit of a game here that people aren't being honest about the cost of what's really happening. We're shifting costs. It's like the student loan discussion when people take loan forgiveness. That's not loan forgiveness. That's just somebody else paying the tab. And I think that's where we're missing the broader discussion here is we're shifting payments from one person to another, but the bill is still being paid, and we're not being honest in a lot of cases about what's really happening.
Jeanette, really glad you were able to join us today. I know you said you mostly watch live. What do you like about two-way?
I like the people being able to ask questions and to give opinions, and I do like that you try very hard not to snipe at each other.
Try. That's the operative word. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When you said at the beginning you're a globalist, not a Democrat, mm-hmm. I was intrigued. What do you mean by that? Like, what does that mean to you?
I think a rising tide lifts all boats, and I think that we should care about the rest of the world. We are the richest country in the world, and I don't know that we shouldn't be helping other people. My brother said sometime it was like there's so many jelly beans in a jar, and they're taking the jelly beans. I'm like, we have all the jelly beans. We should be sharing.
If I can, please indulge me for a second. I'm a fan of rising tide lifts all boats, right? And I do believe helping the less fortunate. And I'm all, but is there something specifically that's happening right now that concerns you?
Oh, well, yeah, a lot of things are concerning me right now. I think this, America first sounds really great, but like we're isolating ourselves. We want all the best deals with everybody. Well, you know what's going to happen is all these other countries are going to, I guess we can't count on America. They're going this way and that way, and we don't know what they're doing. And so, we're saying we want the best deals. They want the best deals too, and they're going out and making deals with other people, and we're going to be sitting here making all our own stuff.
Yeah. And so I agree with you on that, by the way. And I know Dan's clapping. I'm fine with great deals. You guys, any longtime watcher knows how I feel about China, but I also think that like there's a difference between fairness and getting ripped off, and friends, like they've just grown accustomed to, so many countries have grown accustomed to us getting a great deal from us. That's not fairness. That's us getting suckered. Yeah. I think there's a difference between treating an African country under a system of like AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, that helps developing countries, and that helping European countries that are not exactly on the developing front.
Yeah. Jeanette, what could we do, if anything, you can think of to make this platform even more welcoming to people who share your point of view? Anything you can think of we could do to facilitate?
Well, I started watching it because my husband is a Republican, and he was watching it, and I was sitting in the room.
So Mary Republican.
Okay.
And then I was like, I want to answer that. So,
all right. So we hope you and your husband will come back regularly, and we're very grateful to you for participating. Thank you.
Great job.
Appreciate it. Let's try to get one more real quick in, because I think we got 3 new people today, even without threatening to cancel the show. Reed, welcome in. Am I right that you've not been on before?
That's true.
Welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell us where you are, what's on your mind.
On the Mississippi coast, three-time Trump supporter, raising a family of 3 kids.
How old are your
Down on
kids?
Got one in the car, just got out of an ortho appointment. She's 13, about to be 14. Got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Hands full, sir. Thank you for making time for us. What's on your mind?
Got a question. I really enjoyed Tom's thoughts last night on the evening meeting about China. And, the nerves really set in after you get called on.
It's all right. Take your time. You're doing great. Take your time.
Yeah, my question is about tariffs and maybe a motive that's not necessarily mainstream yet. And that is, do you think China has the mindset that they want to reshift their economy internally from being a global producer to a global innovator? And, Tom's point last night about their IP and innovation mindset shifting over the last 15, 20 years. I think that she might be perfectly okay hanging this tariff issue on Trump's neck and blaming, their internal shift from a producing society to more of an innovating.
Yeah, it's a great question. Very great question.
Turning it to a consuming economy instead of an innovating.
Great question. Great question, Reed. Dan.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, she has his own domestic politics. China has their own domestic goals that they're, seeking to accomplish. Unfortunately, part of their innovation has come at our expense by stealing our intellectual property left and right. But yeah, look, I agree with you. They're going to try to do what they can to emerge victorious. And I would not underestimate that as they see themselves now as a world power, in China, it is all about your image. And I just cannot see him caving in this first big kind of showdown in which the Chinese people see themselves as this emerging co-equal power.
Sean.
Yeah, I don't know that he's going to cave. I think that he's got to start to realize that he can only hold out for so long. So I think that we saw some very encouraging signs.
Oh, I think he thinks that's us too. Trump can only hold out so long.
I think it's mutually beneficial. We're okay with
I'm with you, Reed.
We're okay with onshoring. I mean, it's part of our message is bringing that back over the last 15, 20 years of that being offshored. We've got family members who have been affected by some of those China practices in their businesses. And I think as long as we understand that might be a hidden narrative, I think we just need to be talking about that, because I haven't heard anybody say that China might be 100% okay losing some of their manufacturing and bringing in some of those pain points, pressure points, so that maybe they shift globally to more of a innovator versus a producer mindset.
So, Reed, all I'll say is I think that what you're asking is absolutely fascinating. I think one of the things, though, that I have seen over the last several years is so many people, like in our terms of our intellectual foreign policy folks, get China wrong. And so to your point, Reed, I think most of this to me is trying to understand what they're doing as opposed to what I think has happened over the last couple of decades. We try to tell China what they should be doing, and as opposed to understanding that they really don't care. Like we've told them about how climate change is something existential they should care about, as if they think that us telling them is what's going to matter. Yeah. So I think us understanding the problem is probably more important than us trying to tell them what the problem is.
Yeah. Reed, very grateful for making time and hope you'll come back regularly. Thank you so much. Grateful. Sean, what's on your program tonight?
Trish Regan's going to join us, break down tariffs and all things culture. So we got a little news that I'm going to break down on Georgia. I mean, obviously big story we didn't get to today, but Governor Perdue Governor Kemp rather not running. So we'll touch on that.
Okay, great. From me, 6 o'clock tonight, two-way tonight, Beverly Hallberg, Steve Elmendorf will be here. So join us for 6 o'clock with all the day's news, including Madden-style breakdown of the Trump Carney event at the White House. Then my new program next up on the Megyn Kelly Network, third episode drops tonight Amongst my guests, it's Rand Paul. We're going to talk about his principled differences with some of the things that the administration is pushing. And that'll include tariffs and free speech and individual rights. 7 o'clock tonight, the Moynihan Report. Vice Correspondent Thomas Morton joins Michael to talk about It's Not Funny Anymore, a CBC-produced documentary about Proud Boys founder Gavin McInnes. That program's already been recorded with a two-way audience, but you can watch it tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube, on Michael's YouTube channel, The Moynihan Report. And then reminder, we're close to closing our Series A fundraising round, but if you want to invest in Two-Way as a member of the community who believes in what we're doing, send an email to invest@twoway.tv. Please include the amount you're willing to invest. And again, apologies in advance if you don't hear right back from us. We're juggling a lot of stuff here as a startup, including a lot of investment interest. But if you're interested in investing significantly in Two-Way, send us an email. And if you'd like to sponsor this program or any other on Two-Way, we're looking for new sponsors at twoway.tv. We'd love to hear from you. We can explain to you how our sponsorships are different, we think, than those available other places.
Yeah, if you don't hear back from Mark, you can always get a prompt response from me by just Venmoing at Sean Spicer, any amount.
That is the other way to do it. Grateful to everybody. 3 new folks asking questions today, which we love. Looking forward to Dan's move completion. And I'll see you later on Next Up and on Two-Way tonight. Have a good day, everybody.